Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Meet Your Mentor podcast. The Meet Your Mentor podcast is a podcast where I, the host, will interview a mentor to learn a little bit about their life and journeys, their job, maybe asking about some advice that they might have for listeners, what it means to be a mentor, and so much more. Now, my name is Elise, and as I said earlier, I am the host of Meet Your Mentor. I'm a junior in high school, and I am an intern here at the Mentor Project. Now, before I get started and introduce you all to today's mentor, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of you listening in and all of the sponsors as well. You guys keep this podcast running, and we really appreciate what you do. Now, I am so excited to interview today's mentor, Megen Schlesinger. I told her beforehand I was going to butcher it. But Megan's career began when she served on active duty in the Army. She was a military intelligence officer for 7 years, and she even received a Bronze Star Medal. During this time, Megan's experience in the intelligence field led her to work with lots of different units, such as special operations and mechanized infantry. After her active duty, Megen earned her master's in business administration at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. Now, Megen is the Deputy Director of the Central Coast Tech Bridge at the Naval Postgraduate School in California. There, she provides strategic advisement to the school regarding collaboration between government, academia, and industry to hopefully improve the Department of Defense Technology. She also volunteers here at the Mentor Project, where she is the Chief Operations Officer. Now, Megen has so many credits, but I figure I will let her talk to you more about them later. So I am so happy to have you here, Megen. Take it away.
Hi, thanks. Glad to be here. Nice
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So to get us started, can you just maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself and perhaps a little bit more about your job at the Naval Postgraduate School?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I started my career in the Army, so I have a lot of background and understanding of, what that means to be a service member and, anything from just kind of the daily struggle of, how do I make this team of people work together? How do I use the tools at my disposal to get my job done in an appropriate way that's really effective and important? How do I communicate appropriately? As an intelligence officer, it was always my job to advise the commander on, here's what we think it looks like out there before you cross the line and go into a dangerous situation. It's my job to prepare you. And if I can't communicate that appropriately, you're either not going to get the information that you need, or you're not going to trust the information that I give you. So, that was always very important. And definitely laid the groundwork for some of the skills that I've brought forward in my career. Then after leaving active duty solely for family reasons, I actually really enjoyed my time in the military, but being in a dual military family, my husband's still in the Army now, that became really difficult once we had children. So I moved on. And as you mentioned, I got my MBA, and I was given an opportunity to start work for a nonprofit organization, which I think that experience has been helpful in so many ways. It's similar to the military, very mission oriented rather than all about the bottom line. However, you still have to survive as an organization. So I got to put my MBA to a lot of good use. And we were really focused on bringing industry, academic partners, and other government partners together to help, ensure that we were getting our service members the technology and all the other things that they need. So I've been able to kind of continue along this thread, and now I work for the Naval Postgraduate School, as you mentioned, by being involved in the defense community, but also being involved in a way that allows for us to build partnership. How do we, work together to solve a common problem so that, we keep our country safe, we keep our service members safe, they're able to do their jobs. I don't know if you know, but we don't just, go out and fight wars. We do a lot more than that in the Department of Defense. So really some kind of underlying things that I think have kind of carried me through my career and kept me motivated as a person are, how do we create partnerships? Where are those mutual benefits that keep us going together? And how can we do things better, essentially, so that, again, we stay safe, our country is safe, and we continue to be, the amazing country that we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as the job that I do now, again, that's largely focused on, building a community around a couple different things. Some of it is very technology intensive. I'm not a techie person, so that part is definitely a challenge for me, and it keeps me on my toes. But again, I get to really practice that communication skill that's so important in being able to translate. And I don't know if you've had Jen Snow on the podcast, but that is her specialty. So I get to practice that a little bit as well in the job that I do. Again, a lot of it is finding those partners that can really contribute to both the school's mission as well as the mission of Naval X, which is the Navy's innovation organization. So, trying to take technologies that the Department of Defense invests in and, make them either more meaningful, make them more applicable, make them things that private industry is interested in. Dual use technology is really becoming important, so that we're not just building government specific things. That's not a very efficient way to do things. So we're trying to find things that our industry partners who are also, if you don't think they have already, they're pretty darn close to eclipsing the government in technology development. We're not the only people in space anymore. SpaceX is out there too. So obviously that's happening. And if we don't, as a government, look outward and look for opportunities to work together, then we're going to miss those opportunities, right? So that's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into my job, but that's largely what we're trying to get after and what we're focused on, is that partnership, making it easier to work together. The government is not the easiest organization to work with. So we're definitely trying to make that easier. And again, it's always with the goal of keeping our service members safe, making sure they're able to do their job well, and keeping our country safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a lot of information at once. Wow. Sounds like you have quite the job and quite the background. And I would love to talk more about all of it. But one thing that I noticed you brought up a few times, obviously, was that a big part of your job is just learning to work together. So can you give me any perhaps specific skills that might help people improve in those areas, or ones that you've noticed make it easier to work better with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the easiest thing to throw out there is finding common ground. A lot of times people go into meetings, negotiations, whatever it is, with, very narrowly focused on what they want to get out of the relationship. But I find that, sometimes that can lead to what we call a zero-sum attitude, where it's no, 1 + 1 = 2. If you take away my one, then there's only one remaining. Whereas a lot of times there's actually room for, what I like to call 1 + 1 = 3, where you're growing the pie, not taking pieces away out of the pie. There tends to be more opportunities for mutual benefit than people often realize. So I think trying to think forward and think through that common ground, not only does it obviously allow you to achieve that, but it allows you to get just further in the relationship and show hey, I'm invested in your success. Hopefully you're invested in my success. And then together we can really succeed. I think a lot of it too is about being a good listener. Sometimes, people just aren't good listeners. And so we talk around each other, we talk past each other often, and active listening is probably, a skill that's less appreciated. So I think that's really important too, in building those partnerships. And then I think finally, celebrating and cheering on your partners is really important. I think that helps build the trust and show that, I genuinely care about what's going on. And, that's hard in in a lot of different industries and social environments, where a lot of times it's about who's the best. And I just feel, generally speaking, we don't cheer each other on enough. Whereas how hard is it to share a LinkedIn post and say, like, look at what this company is doing, or look at what this university is doing. That's so great, and celebrating and cheering each other on. And it helps provide that unity that I think that we need in order to be successful in an endeavor like this, because it is a really huge endeavor.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really, really great answer. I especially love what you said about like active listening, because I kind of agree that just in my time, with the mentor project and hosting this podcast, that's a skill that I've had to work on a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's not one that comes like super naturally to people, and you really have to like develop it and work on it. So that's definitely very interesting to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to like shift gears a little bit and talk more about like your work in the intelligence field, and kind of, I know that's a very broad field, but perhaps tell us a little bit maybe about like an example of something you worked on, or kind of a day in the life, almost something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. So, pure transparency, I was what they call an all-source intelligence officer, which means that I kind of did a little bit of everything. So I have about, this deep of knowledge on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I can deep dive on certain different things, but within intelligence, there's multiple disciplines. So there's imagery intelligence, where you get really good at looking at imagery, and that can be all different kinds of imagery, not just photographs, but and kind of spotting things and anomalies that might tip you off to something. There's signals intelligence, which is, intercepting communication, which especially as we enter a more digital and cyber age, that has exploded. There's also, there's just so many different kinds of intelligence. Human intelligence, which you can gather from people, there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of, I think people have a conception that it's really, like, it's just really glamorous. It's really not.
Yeah.
At least not most of it. But as far as, kind of a day in the life, I'll give you a more extreme example, but an example nonetheless. So one of the things that I got to do in my time as an intelligence officer, I was deployed to Afghanistan for 12 months when I was 24 and 25 years old. I spent half and half of those years. It's very different from all my peers. I did ROTC, so I didn't go to a service academy. There weren't that many people in my graduating class that graduated college and went straight into the military like I did. But, so during that time when we were deployed, I was what they call the executive officer, or the XO of a military intelligence company. And so what that meant was that we had all these different assets that we use to assist in, gathering and analyzing intelligence to support our ground warfighters. So we had some drones, we had interrogators, we had linguists, we had some of our signals intelligence experts that would, exploit and analyze data that could help us, do all kinds of things. Probably don't want to go into too much detail about. But anyway, so we had all of those different kinds of intelligence professionals within our organization. And as the executive officer, it was basically my job to support them in making sure that they were a well-oiled machine and that they had everything they needed to go out and either collect or analyze the intelligence that was collected. So even though this is less intelligence related, I still had to understand the needs of all these organizations. So one of the things that I got to do was during our time in Afghanistan, my particular company that had all these assets, we were spread out across 12 different locations in the country. Afghanistan's a whole country. It's pretty big. And, it's not very, I wouldn't say it's overly dangerous, but it wasn't extremely safe to travel amongst all these different places. But one of the things I got to do was to go out and visit all of them and kind of learn a little bit about what each of them did, so I fully understood how to support them. And so between getting to go out and launch one of our drones they're launched by almost like a slingshot, getting to go out and launch one of those and see them land, so that I could understand, how long do they run for, and how do our operators run them, and what are their fuel needs like, and how do we make sure they get enough sleep so they don't fall asleep while they're trying to fly them, and things like that, to going out and looking at our signals intelligence collectors, and where do they place their listening devices, so to speak. That's not really what they are, but where do they place them, and how do they make sure that they're getting as much information as they can, so that we can kind of help track down the bad guys, things like that. And then so in a regular day, after getting to go and see all of that, in a regular day, a lot of it was just getting emails like, did the fuel make it here, did they need, and so much that it's funny that I think that people don't realize how much that we have to do, as well as, it's not like you can call the cleaning company to come clean up your office at the end of the day. So a lot of what we did too was having just to build our own facilities. So I'm trying to order wood, to try to get, and a lot of times we work with third country nationals, which, we'd work with Afghans to come and help us build things as well. So, on a given day, I'm sitting there trying to coordinate fuel deliveries and making sure that, prisoners were moved appropriately to the right place for our interrogators to meet up with them. And did the intelligence reports get sent in on time? And are we making sure that our drones are collecting on the right areas that we need them to collect on? There was just so much to do to make sure that everything kept running. So I learned so much in that job. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say, to relate it back to the mentor project, that was certainly, that year was probably the most heavy mentorship I've ever received, as a receiver of mentorship. And it has completely changed the trajectory of my professional life, I would say. So, just again, to tie it back to the mentorship project a little bit, that's why all that, especially that year that I spent there, is so meaningful to me, and why mentorship is so meaningful to me, because, that's when I received so much, because otherwise I was just a 24-year-old who was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Needed that help. So
yeah. You're reading my mind. I'm glad you brought up the mentor project, because I did want to talk about that now, but
really?
Your year just sounds very multifaceted, I guess is kind of the word that's coming to mind.
Absolutely.
But what I've also heard a lot of mentors say when talking to me is just that, even if, I feel like for you it's a slightly different case, but some of the mentors that I've talked to will have a past job where they learned and honed this one skill super well, and they'll completely switch over to something else and be able to transfer those skills. And so it kind of sounds like you're able to use some of that stuff with the mentor project, which sounds kind of like why you brought it up almost. So yeah, I've just found that to be quite interesting. But in regard to the mentor project, just can you either talk a little bit about what mentoring means to you, which I know you brought up a little bit at the end, or perhaps what it means to be the chief operations officer as well, and what that entails.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'll talk first about mentorship and kind of why it's personal to me. And it really, to me, is a lot of the reason why I came on board, really. So I would say mentorship has just been really important to me and very personal to me, both as a mentor and as a mentee. I think, I was an athlete growing up, so I swam all the way up through college from the time I was 6 years old. And, obviously a lot of that is a very individual sport, but I would say that I certainly had coaches that kind of recognized potential in me and really helped push me. And I think I learned a little bit about what works for me as an individual, and then also kind of observing how mentorship can be very different for very different people. When I was in college, I actually kind of got to take on the role of being a mentor to one of my teammates, and that she really was kind of, and I think that age is a hard age anyways, and people don't love to talk about it because they always talk about how much fun they have in college. But I think you're also finding yourself as an adult, and really kind of identifying who do I really want to be. And, sometimes, you feel like you're lost and, or you don't know which direction to go. And so, one of my teammates, purely from an athletic perspective, I didn't coach her like on where to go in her life or anything like that. But I think one of the things that she needed was somebody that, really believed in her and saw her potential. And she was a teammate that I trained with. Like, she and I trained very closely together. We were both distance swimmers. So that's a really small group.
Yeah.
Who wants to be the distance swimmer on the team. So it's a really small group of people. And I think for her, just saying like, I believe in you. I know you can do this better. Sometimes she would kind of throw a fit about some of the work that we had to do in a practice. And I'd say like, don't do that. Like, get out here, get in the pool. You're doing it with me because we can do it. And I learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work with a person. And then finally with that time in Afghanistan, like I said, it was just such a formative year for me as a person. And again, a lot of it was I had a person that I still look to as a mentor, both professionally and in life circumstances. So much kind of happened over that time. And there was so many things that I was really unsure of myself. And for somebody not only to say like, yes, you can do it, but to also help provide some structure and some insight, and just teaching me different things about, how to work with people. I mean, when you go to a place like that, your team is your team. You're not hiring somebody new. So a lot of times you got to work with what you've got, and just having somebody to say like that I could bounce ideas off of, somebody to share experiences with me about kind of what they've learned that works and doesn't work, and how they, moved forward in their career in an effective way. And then also somebody, like I said before, that just cheerleaded me on and said like, why do you think you can't do this? Because there were definitely times where I was just like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
Do this? And they were just like, of course you can. We're all here. We're all together. And like, you're going to do this. And I'm going to do it with you. And like I said, it left such an impact on me. It made me grow. It made me gain so much confidence, as a person. I think as a woman in the workforce, that's especially important. I think a lot of women undersell themselves. And, I hope this doesn't, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I think that, women are particularly prone to imposter syndrome, where they know more than they think they might, or they don't have the confidence that they need to really be effective, when, women and men are all incredibly powerful, especially when, we work together and we really understand our own strengths and, do everything we can to maximize that. So anyways, as far as coming into the Mentor Project, I was approached, actually, Jen Snow is friends with my boss at my job. And so she asked him if I had an interest in getting involved in some way, especially knowing that at my previous job prior to coming to the Naval Postgraduate School, I was the managing director of that company. So I learned, while the airplane was in flight, how to build a small business, kind of what are some of the business functions that we needed to keep running. And obviously I have an operations background, like with what I told you about my time in Afghanistan and what life in the day was like. So I kind of have developed a penchant for being able to say, like, what are all the tasks we need to accomplish? How do we get them done with the things that we have at hand? And so I met with Debbie, the CEO, and, we talked about some of the challenges that I faced and kind of some of the room or areas for growth that I thought the Mentor Project might have, and just, where she thought that there were challenges and things to work through. And it just seemed like a really good match. Like I had, and that was great, feeling like I have something to offer this organization, while also knowing that this organization has something to offer me. I'm really excited to be involved with a group that is not all about national security and, fighting wars and doing that kind of stuff. It's really great to, kind of be more focused on something that's a little bit more about other people, and not just widgets and pieces of technology and, defeating our enemies and things like that. It's really great for me. And I think it's, kind of a missing piece in my own personal toolkit. So I'm excited to develop it. And, again, I hope that for the Mentor Project, I can help make things run a little bit more smoothly as we start growing. I mean, that's the hardest part, is after getting started is then managing how you grow. And so, that's a lot of what I'm focused on, is how do we grow in the right ways? If you think about it like a plant, sometimes you got to prune and trim a little bit to make sure that it becomes beautiful and it's successful. So that's really what a lot of my job at the Mentor Project is about.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Yeah, I definitely knew a little bit about it, but thank you for clarifying on some of that stuff, because I haven't really talked to you before and worked closely with you like I have with Debbie and some others. But so it seems like we're almost out of time, but I have a couple things left. So the first thing is, if there's anybody who is listening or watching and wants to either learn more about you or get in touch, do you have a website or a social media that you could direct them to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the easiest place is probably my LinkedIn profile. I'll say I'm not the most active person ever, but at the same time, I do check it regularly just because of the work that I do. That's one of the easiest ways for somebody to get in touch with me. Is through my LinkedIn page. So I'm happy to take, messages or friend requests or, connection requests, whatever they are. That's definitely an easy way. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to give my email address for the Mentor Project out here. It's Schlesinger, SCHLESINGER @mentorproject.org. So if it's specific to Mentor Project, please, by all means, reach out. And, if I can't handle it, I will direct you to the person that can. But yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah. So the last thing that I have is sort of new, but I thought it would be kind of fun to switch things up a little bit. And so what I've been doing for the past couple episodes is just some almost rapid fire questions that are not as professional, more about hobbies and things like that. Because I feel like it's good to know your mentor as a person and, things outside of their job as well. So I just thought it might be fun to include this. So my first one is, what is your favorite book?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh gosh. You know what I'll say? The first one that came to mind is The Giver, which I had to read when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe going into 6th grade, but I will say that one because it's the first book that really blew my mind. That really kind of made me think about, wow, the power of language and everything. It's just so powerful, and it really got me interested in what else is out there. So I'll say that.
Very good answer. Yeah, I enjoyed that book as well. Second question is, do you play any instruments, or did you used to?
I do not, but I will say I've tried. In college, I really thought that I'd be able to take piano and that I'd pick it up no problem because I can type really fast. And I came to find out that's not the case.
Well, at least you tried. You gave it your best shot,
I did. I really wish I could play it though.
Yeah. Next one is, how do you spend your time off when you're away from work?
Great question. I'm a lifelong athlete, I've realized is the way to put it. So I spend a lot of my time, if it's Megen time, right? Because I have children, so that's a whole separate piece of my identity. If it's Megen time, I'm probably going for a run, or this summer I made it a goal to complete a triathlon, so I tend to get on my bicycle a lot more than I enjoy doing. But then, really, other than that, I'm probably hanging out with my kids. I have 3 little boys, and they're all, the oldest is 6, so they take up a lot of my time and keep me really busy. But they challenge me and make me grow in all the right ways.
Wow, that's Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah. The last question that I have for you is, what is your favorite movie franchise?
Ooh, that's also a good one. Um, Maybe it's not a franchise, but I'll
Totally
say
fine.
my favorite like series of movies and short series by the same author. How about that? Are Gillian Flynn ones. So when Gone Girl came out, the book, I read every other single book that she wrote, and this probably they're so dark. But it's so fascinating to me because it's so polar opposite of how I am. So
Uh-huh.
I've watched, obviously I've seen the movie, and then I recently watched Sharp Objects, which was it was a small series that HBO did that is based on another one of her books. And any other movie that comes out by her, I'm probably going to watch. So.
Gotcha. Very interesting. I haven't seen any of the movies or read the books, but I have heard a little bit about them. So they definitely do seem kind of interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, those were all my questions, and it seems we're pretty much out of time. But I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. And I'm just really glad we could find the time to make this work.
Yeah, me too. It was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for everyone who's watching or listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everybody found that pretty interesting, and maybe you're even able to take something away from it. If you want to learn more about Megan, feel free to visit the places that she mentioned, or her email, which I will go ahead and include in the description of the podcast to make it a little bit easier. And then you can just go ahead and get in contact with her. If you want to learn more about me or the Mentor Project, feel free to go to the Mentor Project website, which I will also include down below. I hope to see all of you back here next week. And once again, thank you so much to our sponsors for making this podcast possible. We appreciate everything you do. And because of our listeners and watchers, we are able to keep this podcast going. So we are very thankful for you as well. I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you so much. And thank you, Megan.
Yep, thank you.